wind howled like a pack of wolves, tearing through the barren landscape of a small mountain village nestled deep in the heart of winter. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, piling up in drifts that swallowed everything in their path. It was the kind of storm that made even the hardiest souls hunker down by their fires. But out in the frozen wilderness, a small gray tabby named Frost was fighting for her life. Frost had been a barn cat, accustomed to the rugged life of a rural farm, but she'd never faced a blizzard like this. She'd slipped out of the barn early that morning, chasing a rustle in the underbrush, her instincts overriding the warnings of the darkening sky. By the time the storm hit, she was too far from home, the familiar scent of hay and warmth erased by the icy wind. Her sleek fur, once a shield against the elements, was now matted with snow, her paws numb from trudging through the deepening drifts. Hunger gnawed at her belly. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, the mice she usually hunted driven deep into their burrows by the cold. Frost's green eyes, usually sharp and alert, were half closed against the stinging snow, but she pressed on, driven by a primal will to survive. The world around her was a white void, the outlines of trees and fences swallowed by the storm. She tried to meow for help, but the sound was snatched away by the wind, leaving her more alone than ever. Her body ached with every step, her tail dragging behind her like a frozen weight. She stumbled into a shallow ditch, the snow softer here but no less cold, and curled into a tight ball, her breath coming in shallow, frosty puffs. She didn't know how long she lay there, drifting in and out of consciousness, her thoughts a jumble of warmth she could no longer feel. The storm showed no signs of letting up, and Frost's strength was fading fast. Her mind flickered to the barn, the rough wooden beams, the scratchy hay bales, the faint hum of the farmer's voice as he worked. She wanted to go back, but her body wouldn't move, her limbs too heavy, her eyes too tired to open. Just as the cold began to claim her, a faint sound broke through the storm's roar, the crunch of boots on snow, steady and deliberate. Frost's ears twitched, though she lacked the energy to lift her head. The sound grew closer, accompanied by a low whistle, the kind a person might use to call a dog. But it wasn't a dog this stranger was looking for. Eli, a reclusive woodsman who lived on the edge of the village, had been out checking his traps when the storm worsened. He'd decided to head back to his cabin, his broad shoulders hunched against the wind, when he spotted a faint gray shape in the ditch. At first, he thought it was a rock or a piece of debris, but something made him stop. A flicker of movement, a glint of green eyes catching the weak daylight. He knelt down, brushing the snow away with gloved hands, and found Frost, her small body curled into itself, her breathing so faint he almost missed it. Eli's weathered face softened, his gray eyes reflecting a quiet compassion. He'd never been much for pets, but he couldn't leave this little creature to die. He scooped Frost up, her body limp in his hands, and tucked her inside his heavy coat, her icy fur pressing against his chest. She was so light, so fragile, he wondered if she'd even make it to his cabin. The trek back was slow, the storm fighting him every step of the way, but Eli kept his head down, his focus on the faint warmth of the cat against him. When he finally reached his cabin, a small log structure buried in snow, he kicked the door open and set Frost down near the fireplace. The fire was already roaring, its orange glow casting long shadows across the room. He wrapped the cat in an old wool blanket, rubbing her gently to coax warmth back into her limbs. Frost's eyes fluttered open, her gaze unfocused but alive, and she let out a weak, raspy meow, as if thanking him. Eli didn't have much to offer, but he warmed some milk over the fire and poured it into a shallow dish. Frost lapped at it slowly, her movements sluggish but determined, the warmth of the milk spreading through her like a lifeline. Over the next few days, the storm raged on, but inside the cabin, a quiet bond formed. Frost grew stronger, her fur regaining its sheen, her green eyes bright with curiosity as she explored the small space. Eli, a man of few words, found himself talking to her, gruff, One-sided conversations about the weather, the traps, the life he'd carved out in the wilderness. Frost would sit on the arm of his chair, her tail flicking, her purring a steady hum that filled the silence. When the storm finally broke, the village emerged from its snowy prison, and Eli set out to find Frost's home. He trudged through the drifts, the cat tucked inside his coat once more until he reached the farm at the edge of the village. The farmer, a stout man named Henry, recognized Frost immediately, his face lighting up with relief. He'd thought she was gone for good, lost to the storm like so many animals that winter. Henry thanked Eli with a firm handshake and a jar of homemade preserves, but as Eli turned to leave, Frost hesitated. She looked between the two men, her green eyes searching, and then she darted after Eli, her paws kicking up tiny clouds of snow. Henry chuckled, scratching his head. "Looks like she's chosen you," he said, his voice warm with understanding. Eli didn't argue. He scooped Frost up, her purring vibrating against his chest, and headed back to the cabin. The storm had taken much that winter, but it had also given something back. A small gray tabby who'd fought to survive, and a solitary man who'd found a companion in the unlikeliest of places. Frost had a new home, and Eli, for the first time in years, felt the warmth of something more than a fire.